considered.
I've changed my mind.
I don't want to do this anymore. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new Pierre the Chef. I'm Steve, and joining me as always is Christopher. How you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. Saw some family here for the holiday, and just at home right now. Probably visiting my parents a little later today after we get through the show here today.
Fascinating. I'm sure that everybody is very happy to know.
That I have family and I'm not completely estranged from them.
Exactly. It's nice for people to know that, you know, hey, they have well, you have a family. I have a family too. I'm avoidant. I'm family avoidant. So, hey, I got a question for you, man.
Yeah?
Where's Pierre?
Oh, who fucking cares?
We can go with that. We can go with
that. I haven't heard from him.
You know what? I bet he's celebrating Memorial Day with his family because as an adopted American, I'm sure he cherishes our holidays just as much as we do.
Oh, I'm sure. Today, because of Facebook's On the State feature, I know that today is actually the first anniversary of Pierre the Chef #3.
Wow. On
that date we discussed things. I don't remember what, 'cause I didn't go back and check.
We totally planned that.
Yeah, this is actually our first non-Sunday episode.
That's true. That is. We usually do this on Sunday, and we decided not to. I guess because of the weekend. Because I guess last year at this time we weren't fool enough to do it on Memorial Day weekend.
No, it was Memorial Day weekend.
Was it?
It's just yeah, it's just that at this point you had the stream for your Patreon, and I had the family gathering, and Sunday wasn't going to work. So,
yeah, that's right.
We just punted it a day.
Yeah, because it's, you know, it's a priority, as everybody knows.
Yes.
If I got a family thing, I got something, we'll just do it on Monday.
Because this show is certainly the most important thing in both our lives, right?
There's a screen cap. Hey, somebody screen cap that. I have DVR turned on for this. Just back it up a little bit.
Oh God.
Screen cap that. I'll do it.
I have posted a screen cap or two on Facebook of particularly absurd faces. You know, just didn't mean to. It's just sometimes when you freeze frame, you get some very odd looks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, you ever you're watching something on Netflix or something, and you pause it like to go get something to eat or go to the bathroom, and it pauses at the perfect time where like the person is just like, you know, and you're like,
yeah.
Aha.
It's like in the middle of a motion, it looks natural, but you catch the freeze frame, and it's, you know.
Yeah. Although if you're watching a Harrison Ford movie, chances are you'll freeze it when he's going like this. Because he does that. He uses the point. I was reminded of that.
As opposed to Dean Stockwell and Quantum Leap, who did the snap finger and pointer. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was just snap finger first.
Exactly. Sam! Yeah, well, I could see, we just watched The Fugitive yesterday, and boy, he points up a storm.
That is a good movie.
It's such a good movie.
The only problem with it is that it was so good that it helped usher in the era of needless remakes of everything.
Yeah, especially TV shows. They said we could make a movie out of that old TV show, and by God, they tried to do as many of them as possible, didn't they?
But they worked on The Fugitive they worked on that for years, and I've always said what made that movie work was the fact that you liked Tommy Lee Jones' character, because it's easy to sympathize with the man who has been falsely convicted.
Yeah.
But making you like the guy who's trying to capture him and bring him back to be executed is a much harder thing to pull off. And doing that is what made that movie work.
Yeah, and you like him from the very beginning. You like him from the first scene. It's not like, well, he starts out where you think he's a bad guy, but he turns out to be a good guy. Like, you like him from the moment you're introduced to him. You realize, oh, he's funny, he's charming, he has like a very interesting personality. You know, you never view him as a villain at all, which is a really interesting choice to make, you know, because like
he's very much a professional. He's doing the job he's supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think that's why that I don't care scene is so important, because it's like he doesn't bear Kimball any ill will. He just wants to catch him. That's his job, you know.
Yeah, and it's not, and there's already been a conviction, so he has no reason to believe that there's anything wrong going on.
Right. And what I noticed,
he's not with ICE, is what I'm saying.
No, he's not. He's one of those. He's one of those mythical fairy tale creatures that exists only in movies and TV shows. The ethical law enforcement officer. Who?
Yeah, we could use more of them in real life.
Oh God. I was talking about I was talking about that yesterday in the Patreon stream. I thought about Bobby Simone, Jimmy Smits' character in NYPD Blue, and one of my favorite episodes where there's like a group of white supremacists, and one of them murders one of the, you know, like one of their group gets murdered by one of the other ones, and when Jimmy Smits' character has the guy who turns out to be the murderer, like in the interview room, and he's going over his parentage. Just to let the racist guy know that it was a non-white person who got him, and he says, "I just thought you'd like to know the heritage of the mongrel who arranged your future for you." And I just love that. I love that line, and I'm like, oh, isn't that a nice fantasy where the cop catches the bad guy and the cop is the good guy? Oh, what a wonderful fantasy! I think that's why we like cop shows, because it's like, oh, we can root for these imaginary cops. They don't ever do anything wrong, and if they do something wrong, it's part of a character arc. And,
and they'll get over it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Sipowicz is a racist. He'll get over it. It'll take 12 years, but he'll mostly get over it.
I was like the scene of that show where the one person, as he's leaving the interview room, throws a Bible verse at Sipowicz, and Sipowicz responds by looking at his wristwatch and going, "Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Sipowicz, 10:32."
Yes. Oh, that's Sipowicz.
And I think that might have been spontaneous, because the other person there, Clark, I guess, who was in one of the later seasons,
yeah.
the shot of him laughing got the impression that line was ad-libbed, or that wasn't the line he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Because you can usually tell when somebody's like genuinely laughing and like losing it on camera, because laughter's kind of a hard thing to fake a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And he had that look. Like, trying to hold it together and failing miserably.
Was that it was Clark? So was that Mark Paul Gosselaar?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how long NYPD Blue was on the air. That eventually they had to call Mark Paul Gosselaar and say, "We need a cop. Get in here." Zach.
He was on Saved by the Bell, the college years, which premiered the same year that NYPD Blue premiered.
Yeah. Well, and he was old school Saved by the Bell too. Mm-hmm. He was Zach Morris. He was the hero of the piece.
You could even say that with a straight face.
I mean, I watched it because I was in the target demographic, and it was on Saturday mornings, and it came on after cartoons were over, so it was like, we'll watch Saved by the Bell.
I'm not sure that's an excuse.
It's not. It's an explanation. It's not an excuse.
Fair enough.
So now that the pleasantries are out of the way,
let's get to the miserable crap.
What miserable crap are we going to talk about this month?
Well, it's Memorial Day, and you remember, like, growing up, how you learn all about we fought in World War II when we were clearly the good guys, and now we have all of that. How many wars have we had since then where we were clearly the good guys?
I'm gonna say none. Where we were clearly the good guys, I'm gonna say none. Yeah. We've had maybe one where we were arguably the good guys, and even that.
Korea?
Yeah. I was gonna say at the beginning, maybe Afghanistan. But I think history.
I can give that.
Yeah, but history has shown that maybe that we wore out our welcome there too. Where it's like, all right, yeah, I know 9/11 sucked, but come on, guys. You know?
Yeah, because we had Vietnam, which was not the most popular war anywhere.
No.
I remember the Gulf War where when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and we swept in and we urged all of the various people there to stand up against Saddam Hussein and fight for their land and their country and their heritage. And as soon as we liberated the oil fields, we said, all right, we're done here, and we left the people who we encouraged to stand up for us to sort of hung them out to dry, which is why they were a lot less willing to help out after 9/11, because they'd been burned like 10 years earlier and weren't about to do the same thing again.
Yeah, it's weird how they remembered. Like, hey, didn't you guys kind of fuck us last time?
America's all about forgetting everything, clean slate, no lessons more than 6 hours old.
Yeah, except for the lesson that America is a great nation and the leader of the world. You should always remember that.
Right. because yeah, and it's tough because you know you don't want to be critical, of the military in general, because there's no reason for that. That's not warranted. But it's very easy to be critical of the various military engagements that they have been ordered into over the last 20 years or so, because it used to be fighting for important things. World War II is one that we look at, and we can very clearly say that was a good fight. That was one we should have had, one we had to do. You can't really say that about recent wars. More of the recent wars are about war profiteering and securing oil.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, we talk a lot on this show. We've mentioned
that's not what these people signed up and are willing to die for.
No, well, and that's not what is being used to justify their service and them being put in harm's way and many of them dying. It's not, well, we have to protect our nation's economic interests. They say, oh, we're fighting for freedom. We're protecting liberty. We're protecting the rights. Those.
If we were I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Well, it's like those people putting on that uniform and going over there and fighting. Like, that's the reason you have the right to stay here and blah. You know what I mean? Like, they're defending your liberty, and it's like, I mean, not really, not right now. In theory, yes, I suppose if the United States were ever invaded by a hostile power, yes, they would be the ones defending our freedom, but they're not defending our freedom in Iraq.
And I don't think the United States has been invaded by a hostile power for about 206 years.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
The War of 1812, I think, was the last time that happened.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And unless you count the North invading the South. In the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah, or all the immigrants coming in that ICE has to separate and lose.
You have to separate them from their very dangerous children.
Yeah.
So
Did you hear about how 1,500 kids in custody are just missing?
And
PBS found documents, some of them were released to human traffickers.
To human traffickers, and the answer apparently is still, well, it's not our legal responsibility. Well, whose responsibility is it? Like,
what the hell do we stand for if this is what we do to children?
Yeah.
What moral high ground do we have?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
what is the military fighting for if this is what's happening back home?
Yeah, we don't even have the usual imaginary moral high ground that we typically have, where it's like everybody just sort of goes along with it, even though we all pretty much know it's horseshit. Like the United States, what the United States has is power. The United States has no moral high ground. The United States has power, and we're fortunate enough for our own purposes that there are worse countries on the globe that we can point to and say, well, at least we're not those guys. But that doesn't mean that we're the righteous ones. It just means we're slightly less shitty than some of the other ones.
Yeah, there's morality and then there's comparative morality.
Right.
And if you're relying on comparative morality, you're in pretty bad shape to begin with.
Right. Like, well, at least we don't oppress people as bad as they do. Okay. Well, congratulations for us, I guess.
Congratulations for the level of oppression you find acceptable.
Yes, it just so happens we find a different level of oppression acceptable in this country. So, yeah. Well, and the thing is, and like I was saying a few minutes ago, we've talked about how like the people in the United States are, we're addicted to certain narratives, and one of the narratives we're addicted to is the patriotic narrative, where that America is a great country, and it is just because it is. Like there's no foundation to it. It's just an axiom. America is a great nation, and being a patriotic American means just recognizing that and parroting that axiom without ever questioning it or asking any more of your country or questioning the way certain actions of your country are justified to you. I mean, the way the military and the way the good feelings toward the military are exploited to justify some truly horrific things is unconscionable, and it's done regularly, and it's really revved up this time of year because Memorial Day is all about the loss of life and about the sacrifices and the veterans who didn't come home, and boy, they turn that up to 11, to fill everybody with this patriotic fervor, so that then when you start saying, well, maybe we shouldn't do that, It becomes a question of patriotism instead of a question of policy, you know?
Yeah. It goes back to that whole mindset of you have to go all or nothing. If you criticize anything about an individual or a group, you're rejecting that group entirely. Well, no. Yeah, you can support a group or an agency or whatever and still be critical of things that they do.
Well, and if you care about it, then it's your duty. I mean, if you see your country doing something that you think is foolish or destructive or immoral, I mean, how is it patriotic to make excuses for it instead of standing up and challenging it and saying we need to be better than this? I mean, that's the whole reason why people were pissed off when they found out that the CIA was torturing people. At least some of us were. Some people were like, well, we just did what we had to do. Well, fuck that.
They torture people worse. We have comparative superiority.
Let me tell you something, buddy. If you're going to be tortured by somebody, you want to be tortured by us. You don't want to be tortured by those animals over there, okay? Yeah, because our tortures, we practice humane torture, I guess. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think Al Franken had really phrased it well. Back in his pre-Congress days, in one of his books, he said that more on a conservative and liberal side, liberals tend to love the country like an adult loves their mother, whereas conservatives love their country like a 5-year-old loves their mother. You know, the 5-year-old is like, this is mommy and she's good and everything he does is good and anyone who criticizes her is bad.
Right.
And you're an adult, you can look and say, she's a wonderful person. There are problems, things that aren't ideal, and I can acknowledge that and be aware of that and still love her, but know that there are places where she could have done better.
Right, exactly.
And that's where you look at this country. I mean, you have Sean Hannity and his bizarre form of patriotism, where everything is just we're the greatest country ever and we're perfect, and that's the end of it. And then you have other people who are like, no, there's problems here. We can do better. That doesn't mean that we hate the country, just that there are parts that can be improved.
Yeah, and I think it's a recognition that the country is not, I mean, yes, the country is an abstract concept, but the real part of the country, the actual individuals that make up a country are people. I mean, if you don't have people, then it's just land, and people are, it's like the Sean Hannitys, they defend this abstract construct of the country, but the way they do it imperils and endangers and harms the people that live here. So it's like, how is it patriotic to support the country in a way that harms the people that make up the country? It makes no sense at all.
Because it's free of context. It's not a conclusion. It's a given at the beginning. America's a great country. Well, if you take that as a given, then you have to take whatever the country does is good as well, and then you end up defending it. As long as a conservative is in office. Once a Democrat goes into office, then all of a sudden all bets are off.
Yeah, exactly. Because
that's another part of it. The hypocrisy, the sheer hypocrisy, the way that what is okay at one point suddenly becomes not okay at another.
Oh yeah.
How you say you have to honor our military. You can't kneel during the national anthem because that's disrespectful to our military. But sending them into these ridiculous quagmires with no goal in order to make money for oil barons, or letting them sleep in the streets and not getting the medical care when the veterans come home, that's apparently quite all right.
Oh,
as long as you say good things about the veterans, then you can treat them however you want.
Exactly, and don't you also love how if the veteran happens to be a transgender person, it doesn't matter what the fuck they did, they have to go. You can openly disrespect trans veterans or gay veterans, although the gay veterans are I think maybe marginally more accepted than they were in the past, but now it's all that has shifted over to trans people. It's like, well, we thank you for your service, cis people. We don't want your service, trans people. It doesn't matter how brave and heroic you are or how much you want to serve your country. Sorry. Once
the Supreme Court ruling came in on the marriage rights, they realized, all right, well, this battle appears to be lost. Let's go to the next group and start attacking them instead.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Started all over. Because you didn't really hear anything about trans rights or people claiming that trans people were a threat in any way until right after that Supreme Court ruling, and then all the hatred and bigotry just shifted over to a new target.
Yeah, that's exactly, and
essentially the same arguments.
it's exactly the same arguments. It's exactly the same arguments. I mean, it's the same arguments that are always made whenever an oppressed group petitions for equal rights. It's always the same argument. It's always, it'll destabilize society. You know, it's immoral. It'll endanger some vulnerable group. It's bad for the children, or it's bad for, you know, some other vulnerable group of people. Like it's always the same. It's always the same. It's they are coming.
Women aren't allowed to vote or work. That's why black people aren't allowed to marry white people, because it's against the laws of man, country, and God.
Exactly. There's a really great moment in the new the Cobra Kai series on YouTube Red, which everybody should watch, by the way. Anybody who's watching this, if you haven't seen Cobra Kai on YouTube Red, this is a free commercial for Cobra Kai. You should go watch it immediately. Just sign up for the free month for YouTube Red and then cancel it after you watch the show. It'll be easy. And where Johnny, right?
You're getting any payola for that?
I'm getting nothing. I'm just out of the kindness of my heart. It's my love of William Zabka has compelled me.
Never mentioned before since.
Yeah, never. I know. Hey, I am always talking up William Zabka. You don't fucking know. But he's really good in Cobra Kai. And there's a moment where when in about midway through the series, when Johnny has reopened the karate dojo and he's having students come in, and one of the students that comes in is a girl from the local high school who's been bullied, and Johnny at first he's like, sorry, we don't train girls, you know. And his other, like his star student who he first started the school with is like, no, that's really sexist. You have to let her in. Like, why can't you, you know, girls can learn karate just the same as boys can. And Johnny says, no, they can't. Boys and girls are different. Girls aren't built to fight. That's why they're not allowed to serve in the army. And he's like, just complete straight face. You know what I mean? Like he honestly believes that women aren't allowed to serve in the army. And it's one of the funniest scenes in the whole show, because he's just like, because the kid is like, oh my God. And he's like, what?
But, you know, that's an ongoing problem. Extremely uneducated debate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's one of the reasons why this patriotism thing is so tough to get past. Because if people knew, I think, how exploited the military is, both in terms of like just the way individual members of the armed forces are mistreated, and the way that they are leveraged to promote irrational or immoral or unacceptable things, I think more people would be upset about it. But you know, they just swallow whole the idea that, well, everybody in the military is great and the military are heroes, and whatever the military does is by definition heroic, therefore we should support whatever they do, you know.
And it's generally not the fault of the military itself or the people who choose to serve. It's the people higher up.
No, most people who serve in the military in the United States are doing it because they need a job. I mean, that's and I don't mean to diminish the service of those who serve honorably, and there are certainly those who serve who have you know, who feel a larger calling, you know, who feel like they want to do something great for their country or for their community or whatever. But most people who serve in the military are doing it for the money, because you know
join the military, get money for college.
Yeah, exactly. I have a friend who has been she's been in the Army National Guard for years, and that's the reason, is the money. I mean, it's not, and she's proud of her service, and it's become a very important part of her life, and she's not, you know, embarrassed by it or by any stretch. But the whole reason she signed up, she wasn't, you know, she never dreamed of joining the military. She never thought like, one day I'm going to be a soldier. Like, she joined it. She was in a spot in her life where she thought, you know what, if I joined the Army, and then, you know, if I joined the Army National Guard and stuck with it for a few years, that would put me in a much better position. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's what she did. And that's what a lot of people do. And it doesn't mean that what they're doing is any less good, but let's face it, you know, not everybody who joins is you know, has stars and stripes in their eyes, and which makes it even worse that they're exploited so horribly, because they join for an opportunity and then they're taken advantage of.
Well, that's capitalism.
Yeah.
I mean, in a nutshell, that's capitalism.
Yeah, I know.
which is it's sad, but that's a completely different argument that we probably shouldn't get into at this point.
Yeah, I don't want you spreading your communist propaganda on this on this channel. This is a patriotic American channel. And
that's why you're wearing the American flag cap.
By the way, speaking of people, I was thinking about this week because, you know, just the other day we had our Memorial Day parade here in town. And
oh, you talked about that, how it wasn't an especially impressive sort of parade.
I mean, we only watched a few minutes of it, but, you know, you get how much of a parade do you need to watch?
Yeah, we have the parade here in a very short parade here in town every Memorial Day, and didn't participate this year because kids aren't in band anymore. They're wrapping up with band, and one of them had to work today. So, yeah, they have the thing. They close off the roads, and they have the little parade up and down the, one day down 315 and up the other, and it's a very short route. And I've seen a couple of parades there, and I don't always. Maybe it's just me. I don't really understand the appeal.
Oh, neither do I. I don't understand the appeal of parades at all.
I mean, they show the big Macy's parade, and they show it, and it's all these things, and it's like, it doesn't work for me. I don't get it.
You know, and like this year, my favorite part of the parade, of our local parades, is the majorettes, because I wait for them
it's over?
Because I love the majorettes because I wait for them to drop the batons. That's what the parade brings out of me. It brings out this very vindictive, petty part of my personality, where I watch them throw the baton, and whenever somebody drops one, I'm like, yeah. And they didn't even do that this year. I don't know if it was because it was hot or what, because it was super hot the day of the parade. It was ridiculously hot, and I don't know if they just didn't want to, lose the baton in the sun or something. But the majorettes we saw marching, they didn't even throw it. It was basically just kids wearing sequins just walking,
waving their arms around a little bit with the baton.
Yeah, exactly. They were doing this shit, with the baton, and they were marching. But it was like, and then there was a group of people that they were just guys on motorcycles. I don't even know what organization they were representing. There was no banner, there was no announcement. It was just like 6 guys in motorcycles. And Ashley said, maybe they just snuck in the parade so they could get through town. Maybe they just needed to get somewhere, and they were like, let's just get in here. It'd be better than sitting here all day. But yeah, it wasn't terribly impressive. And of course, we had the Civil War reenactors, Union and Confederate.
Which is the weirdest thing when you think about it.
Yeah, I remember you.
Why would you reenact the Civil War?
Exactly. That you said that a couple years ago, and I thought that's the clearest expression of it I've ever heard. Like, can anybody answer me? Why would anyone reenact the Civil War? Like, it was the worst thing that ever happened. The result was nice, and ending slavery is awesome, but like, why would you pretend to fight the Civil War again? It was horrible.
Yeah, you don't see World War II reenactments. You don't see reenactments of other wars.
Yeah, well, in Europe they do that. But on a very small scale. I mean, it's not like they do bombings. It's not like they're like, let's redo the Blitz. It'll be fun, everybody. You go hide. We'll have some bombers fly over.
Everybody swim ashore.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're storming the beach. Come on, it'll be fun.
No, people gather in memory to honor what happened, but they don't reenact.
Yeah, I mean, going through the motions of like redoing the battle again and they have their cap guns that they shoot and people pretend to fall. It's like, and people watch.
I bet these are the same people who think that cosplayers at Comic Cons are weird.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's such a double. It's another one of those double standards. It's like you dress up and paint yourself different colors for a sports team, and you're perfectly fine. But you do it for an anime character, and you're a lunatic.
I remember I went to see. I forget what it was called now. The Ron Maxwell Civil War movie, the prequel to Gettysburg. I forget what it was called now, but it was like this endless Civil War movie.
Are they all?
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
really?
Actually, you know, the theatrical cut of Gettysburg is okay, is pretty good. The fucking 6-hour TV version should be burned. But
did Peter Jackson direct that?
oh my God, that's probably where he got the idea. He was like, you can make it as long as you want. No, I went to see it in the theater. And there was a guy standing in line behind me who was dressed in full Civil War regalia. And he was cosplaying as a Union officer, so I was civil to him. If he
gotta have your standards.
If he had been dressed up as Secesh, he would have gotten nothing but angry silence.
You probably wouldn't have noticed a difference.
Yeah. And I remember I turned around and looked at him and I said, "You here to see Chicago?" And he laughed and he said, "Yeah, I'm here to see Chicago." So we had a nice little moment. But I just imagine and he was like, and I felt bad for him because he was.
You should have asked a completely random film that was in the theaters at that point. You here to see Pitch Perfect too?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Chicago was in the theater, so that's what I did. But yeah, I mean, I felt bad for him because he was the only one there in costume. And I felt like maybe like him and some friends had decided they were going to get together and go see the movie in costume, and then his friends bailed on him, and he was just like in the parking lot waiting for them, and he's like, "Oh shit, the movie starts in 10 minutes, well I better go in." And you know, oops. Yeah, I don't know, but I think I'll tell you the reenactment thing that really bothered me the most, just to continue this tangent, is you remember like. There was about 5 or 6, probably even longer ago now, like maybe even 8 or 9 years ago, when they found a Confederate submarine like off the coast of North Carolina, and there were bodies in it. Like it was they recovered like Civil War dead like 150 years after the fact, and they had a funeral for them instead of burying them in a unmarked pauper's grave like they deserved, and. And at the funeral they had Confederate reenactors, like instead of actual Army officers, they had Confederate reenactors there, like for the color guard or the 21 gun salute or whatever. And I thought, just like that just seems weird, because it's not. First of all, you're giving an honored burial to traitors, and second of all, you're having pretend Army people like at their funeral. It just felt
Civil War cosplayers, as it were.
That's exactly what they were. It's exactly what they were.
I think that's part of the problem with the reenactments, is that they glorify what happened, because war is ugly and brutal.
Yeah.
And people die in it, and treating it as theater and treating it as something wonderful and trying to play it off as this heroic thing, it gives it a majesty that it doesn't deserve, doesn't warrant, because that's not. Yeah. People don't go into battles looking forward to the death.
No.
I mean, I will admit I've never been in a position like that myself. But seriously, I mean, if you're going into a battle looking forward to that sort of thing, that's not a normal mental state.
No, I don't. Yeah. Well, and it's what. I mean, people are allowed to like what they like, but I'm allowed to judge them for it too. And I just think it's weird. I think it's weird to reenact an actual war where actual people died, and to do it as a fun activity, for like a Saturday afternoon. And I think it's especially weird to wear the costume of an army that fought to keep people enslaved, and to be like, we're having fun, we're having a fun Civil War reenactment.
But it sanitizes and it normalizes it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's why I don't call them Johnny Rebs. I call them Secesh, because I feel like that's less
respectful.
It's less respectful. Johnny Reb, that's like that's like a character in a fucking Boy Scout skit or something. You know what I mean? Like
who teaches like fire safety to Boy Scouts.
Yeah, fire safety and white supremacy.
Yeah. See, it's just, we really, as a country, need to make a more of an effort to not have as many veterans, to not create as many veterans, not get so many of our military killed for such poor reasons, such poor causes. But we are a pro-death country for everything except the people who haven't been born yet. We're pro-death.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
it's part of the same symptom.
Yeah.
or it's affected the same symptom. You know, it's we don't worry about gun violence, we don't worry about health care, but we don't worry about people dying in war. It's just people die, no big deal, which
Yeah.
is horrible, but it's kind of where we stand.
And we have this standard now that has certainly been the case since World War II, and was mostly the case during World War II as well, only maybe a little bit less so, where the people who decide whether or not we go to war are the people who don't have to fight it. And that's, you know, I mean, that's always been the case. That's been the case everywhere throughout all of human history. But in the United States, it's, you know, it's hard to miss as an American on Memorial Day, when this is the subject of our conversation, how, you know, whenever Congress votes to send troops into a hostile area, or when the president just sends them in without congressional approval, you know, the decision is made by people who have absolutely nothing to risk.
Yeah, the Warhawks are the ones who got themselves and their kids deferments.
Yeah, exactly. Or they served during peacetime, you know, so they could say that they served. And then when it comes time for war, it's, oh, well, you know, I did my time, now it's your turn. You know?
Yeah, my limited experience is that people who've been in the military, if they serve during peacetime, they tell you all sorts of wacky, hysterical stories of screwing around during training and things, and wacky stuff that went on, and the fun that they had, and laughs, and they're just trying to break the monotony and try to, you know, have something fun to talk about or to do. And, you know, they tell great stories and everyone laughs. And then if you're talking to somebody who's in the military during military action, during combat, they generally don't say anything about it. And if you're smart or you care about them, you don't ask.
Yeah, I know. As someone who has had relatives in the armed forces, my father served in the Navy. My father-in-law served in the Marines during Vietnam, and I have other like uncles and cousins and stuff who've served in various capacities at various times. And yeah, I don't think I've ever heard like a combat story. And I get the impression that that's the sort of thing where if it's discussed at all, it's discussed among veterans. You know, it's not something that you just whip out at like the Thanksgiving table. Like, let me tell you about this time when we were under fire. And, you know, it's not the sort of thing you share, generally speaking, with people.
And that's very understandable, although it also helps to promote the impression that there's, you know, no consequences to war.
Yeah.
But you can't blame people for not wanting to talk about things like that.
Oh, not at all. I mean, that was one of the most revealing things about Ken Burns' World War II documentary, was that he made a recurring point throughout that entire documentary to talk about how scared those men were during battles.
Oh, yeah.
and how nerve-wracking it was, because, you know, World War II stories are just drenched in patriotism and heroism and the greatest generation, and Ken Burns's film definitely had a lot of that in it, but it also made sure to bring up, you know, the fact that even though we didn't call it that back then, there was definitely PTSD in World War II veterans. There were veterans who, you know, they said
shell-shocked back then.
That's what,
much more serious name. It wasn't a sanitized name like we have now for everything.
Yeah, and they talked about how it was almost better to be wounded in a non-life-threatening way, because then you got to go off the line. I mean, the people who suffered the most psychological trauma were in many cases the ones who kept being sent back over and over again, because you kept feeling like this, you know, the sand's running out of the hourglass, like your number's coming up. And the more times you go back to face combat, the worse it gets. And that was, you know, an incredibly powerful cause of stress as well. And those are stories that, like, you know, except for something like that, you never hear those stories. You never hear about how scared World War II veterans were and how awful that war was. You know, it's the good war. It's the war that we beat the Nazis. You know, it was a good war.
Now we are the Nazis.
Now, yeah, now exactly. Oh no, there aren't any more Nazis. The Nazis don't exist anymore. You've got that wrong. There aren't any more Nazis. Those are just people carrying swastikas and spouting Nazi talking points and believing in things Nazis believe and saying
it's
that
a cultural heritage thing. There's something hateful about it.
It's
I family gathering several years ago. Somebody, a relative who had served in the Middle East in the a couple of years earlier. Been over there for a while. He was sitting in the living room, and the TV was playing like kids. I think it was like, I don't know if it was A Bug's Life or something like that. But there, in the movie, it's like there's, I haven't seen it. I only caught a little bit, but the scene that was on at the time had to do with, I guess they were, some of them were like getting paid to pretend that they were going to be soldiers or something, and then they found out there was going to be an actual battle coming, and there was an actual threat, and they were all terrified, like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do now that they're faced with the thought of actually having to fight? And sitting in the living room along with the kids was this relative who'd been in the Middle East, and he was looking at the TV, but you could tell that he was seeing something very different.
Yeah.
I mean, his mind was far away. Just whatever that scene and what they were talking about was bringing stuff back, and he was just like, his eyes were pointing at the TV. He was looking right through it, and it's like I had no idea. I didn't say anything because I had no idea what to say. I didn't think there's anything you could say at that point. But I'll never forget the look in his eyes at that point, just staring right through the TV. It's that's if you've seen combat, you don't talk about it.
No, yeah, like I say, I mean, the people I've known who have seen it, it very rarely ever comes up, and it's not, it's not a fun subject, and it's not. And you're right. I mean, we don't talk about that culturally. We talk about the heroism, and we talk about the patriotism, and we talk about the good fight and defending liberty and all this stuff, and that's great as like a slogan. But yeah, it desensitizes us to what the military is, to what the military does. Even people who serve honorably in the military, the things that they are called upon to do and called upon to risk. And then when you see the way it's exploited and the way it's leveraged by corrupt people, I mean, it's really unforgivable. And I'm a registered Democrat. The Democrats are my party, for better and for worse. So I'm not going to pretend that they certainly are not innocent of this. They have done this as well. But for the life of me, I don't understand why anyone who cares about the lives of American service members would ever vote Republican. Because if there's, of the two parties, there is clearly a difference. And of the two parties, the Republican Party is the one that is completely fine sending people overseas to kill other people and to get killed themselves for the flimsiest of reasons, and then to completely fuck those people when they come back, and still try to raise money off their backs. I mean, the level of exploitation and shamelessness that is displayed toward the military and military families by Republican politicians is shocking. Even to this day, after I've seen so much of it for my entire life, it's still shocking. And
it's shocking they continue to get away with it. Some people, it's amazing how many people simply do not care.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's an issue in a lot of cases.
And
it baffles me.
It was one of the many times during the last presidential campaign where I thought, okay, this has to be it for Trump, was when he disrespected the Gold Star family.
But this is because we assume that the Republican side, the conservative side, that the bulk of them are being driven by some sense of morality. It's not. It's tribalism. It's us versus them. Yeah. It's the party and everyone else is against us, and we will defend our guy no matter what. It doesn't. You can't reason with them because the positions that they have weren't reached through reason, and so you're not going to get them off it through reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the tribalism comes into play in another way, too, because it just so happens to, the Gold Star family Trump disrespected was a brown-skinned family, so it doesn't really count.
Wasn't the thing where he had like 60 or 70 like wives of military veterans or whatever over, and like every single one of them was white?
All of them were white.
Yeah.
All of them were white. And the thing about that, it still sends a message about the administration and about the president, but I don't think it's quite the message that some people thought. I'm pretty sure they invited non-white spouses. I can't imagine even the Trump White House to be that tone deaf. I'm sure somebody in the White House knew that.
I can.
Well, that's true. I should be careful. I should be careful saying that. But I mean,
you can assume that it's plausible they invited a number of non-white families, and all of them said no.
All of them said no. I think that's more likely what happened. That they invited non-white families and they all said no, and that. But that
still sends the same message.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
In fact, if that's the case, that actually sends it clear, because it's not just the White House; it's the people who are being affected by this who are saying, "I don't want anything to do with this guy."
Yeah, and honestly, I think, I think that should be the response. Anytime anyone is invited to the White House for any reason, like if the winning team of the Super Bowl should say no, we're not coming. The team that wins the Stanley Cup should say we're not coming. I mean that should just be. It should just be standard operating procedure as long as he's there. But, I guess that's asking too much. It's asking...
Well, I've been of the opinion that once this administration is over, the people who support it will never be able to have any moral high ground on anything. They'll make an argument. It's like, well, you didn't say anything when Trump did this, and it'll be something much worse.
I hope that's the way it is. I mean, I'm not in a very... I know that especially people in the media, especially mainstream media, are very forgiving. And I know, like, people have already forgotten Sean Spicer. They're willing to, people are willing to put Sean Spicer on TV and treat him like, he wasn't chief propagandist.
Yeah, what happened to the media and all of this? They used to call out these things, and now it's like, well, if we call them out, they won't come on our show and we won't get the ratings, so we're going to let them have free reign.
Yeah, it's the same thing as what you were saying about politicians and Republican politicians in particular, that they'll just they have no morals, they have no principles. Unfortunately, I think there are people in the media who, I mean, Christ, as if it couldn't have been any more clear. Like just last week, it was reported that Trump told a reporter that the reason he attacks the media is specifically to discredit them, so that people won't believe them when they report negative stories about him. Like, he said that. And what other excuse is there? Why is it such a big... People, I follow a lot of New York Times people on Twitter, and the most frustrating one is Maggie Haberman, because she reports on the White House and she refuses to say that Trump lied about something. She'll say, well, the president said something that wasn't true, but she won't say, just call it a lie. And that's what people say. That's what they say. Just, he lied. Just say that he lied. It's never, she's never admitted to this, but the assumption is that she won't say that because she doesn't want to lose access. And
well, that's a terrible reason.
That's a terrible reason.
That's not your job.
Yeah, exactly.
Having access is not your job. Reporting on what's going on is your job.
Yeah, I mean,
I always saw that back during the when the Afghanistan war started, and then it expanded into Iraq and elsewhere, and they were saying you're not allowed to show the flag draped coffins coming back home, trying to hide the media should have said screw it and shown it anyway. There is a consequence to what's going on here. You can't pretend, you can't act like you're properly honoring the people who died in the military when you ignored it when it happened. Right.
And when you enabled the administration that sent them there to die and to kill for dubious reasons. It's, I remember that too. That's something that I didn't understand at the time either. It's like, well, okay, I understand why the administration would ask, but I don't understand why you're going along with it. I mean, people need to see. This is the war they've been asked to support. People need to see what the cost is, and they need to be able to ask their representatives about this when that time comes, when their member of Congress comes back for a town hall meeting. That's something that people need to be informed about, so they can say, hey, how many more of these coffins do we need to get shipped home before we start reevaluating this?
Well, we need to maintain the fiction that military is, it's like a video game. It's infinite lives. If you kill somebody, they flicker a bit and then are replaced by a shiny coin that you can exchange for better weapons.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know.
I've never liked first-person shooter games. They've never had any appeal to me.
I liked them when I was 15. And I still occasionally I'll still play the ones I played when I was 15, like just for nostalgia.
Right.
Especially Wolfenstein, because who don't love killing Nazis? I'll kill Nazis all day. But yeah, you're right, and it does. I mean, I'm not entirely sold on the connection between like video game violence and real life violence, but it would be foolish not to admit that there is a desensitizing effect. You know, I mean,
I think it plays a role. I don't think it's a defining role. I don't think that it's, you know, if you play these video games, you're going to become desensitized to violence. But violence is so ubiquitous in our culture. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, even our entertainment is appallingly violent. You know, TV shows where you're solving murders every day or every episode, and it's just the violence. It's everywhere.
And I think the key is being aware of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that when you start to internalize it is when you stop noticing it. You know, when you watch like extremely violent media all the time and you stop noticing how violent it is. I think as long as you can keep a level of awareness that what you're watching is gruesome and graphic and violent, then I think you can correct for it, and you're not as desensitized.
That's a good point. If you're in it all the time, you can desensitize it. You don't notice it, which is what you see from a large number of people whenever you mention the concept of white privilege. It's like there's an immediate blowback against that.
Yeah, and it's like
and
people
it's pretty much entirely from white people.
Yeah, weird. Well, yeah, and exactly. And when you ask people who don't have it, who aren't a part of it, it's obvious. You know, it's like people who don't benefit from it can see it clear as day.
And they give you a list of 20 or 30 things off the top of their head.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what do you think? Should we do 5 minutes of Trump? We've kind of mentioned him already.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, okay, here's this. I'm going to start the timer, and we're just going to talk about our not so illustrious president for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And
then we'll talk about happier things. Or maybe not, but less consequential, depressing things.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We'll go with that. And there we go. Okay.
How many military deferments did President Bone Spurs get?
A lot, I would. Yeah.
He's not a combat veteran. He got, like, was it 4 or 5 or 6 deferments?
Yeah, yeah. But he's making up for it now because, you know, he's rebuilding the military.
I wasn't aware that it was broken.
Neither was anybody else. But yeah, that's what he's doing. And speaking of that, he gave was it the Naval Academy or West Point, one of the military officer academies, where he gave the commencement address, and he said he mentioned our ancestors taming a continent, which is a euphemism for mass murdering Native Americans, and he said, and then he said, and we will not apologize for America. So we're not sorry that our ancestors mass murdered Native Americans, because atrocities that we benefit from are okay. So, which
that's
yeah,
that's actually. That's pretty much it.
It's company line. It's American company line. I mean, it's like, yeah, it was too bad, I guess, but here we are.
Back when the coal miners made radical demands, like they wanted to get paid a little better and not have the mines collapse on them so often, so the government sent in their peacekeeping troops to shoot at the miners until they went back underground. Yeah,
you know, proud American tradition. Exactly. Poor people want more? Fuck them. Yeah, and what was the... he had that tweet after the news broke about the 1,500 children being separated from their parents. He had that tweet about what about the lives destroyed by this witch hunt? Oh, what about the people? What about the young people who came to Washington and had stars in their eyes, and now their lives have been destroyed? Like, well, how many
of them are sold to human traffickers?
Yeah, and here's my answer to the people who came to Washington specifically to work for him. Fuck them. I hope they starve to death. Fuck them. I get the feeling most of them are going to be okay, and that makes me upset. I wish they weren't okay, Because anyone who came to Washington specifically to work for Donald Trump, nothing bad enough could happen to them to make me happy. They're awful fucking people. And I don't care what happens to them.
They aren't necessarily Nazis. They just support Nazi sympathizers,
yeah.
white supremacists.
Yeah. Well, and you know...
Because, I mean, if you are still at the point where you're saying that this is not a white supremacist administration, you are either completely oblivious or you are in complete denial. Exactly.
That's the thing about... I mentioned it on the video I put up today about the calling the MS-13 gang members animals. I mean, yeah, okay, if you want to say, well, what, MS-13 is a violent street gang, why are we so offended on their behalf? Okay, fine. You know, I'm not like cheerleading for MS-13. To hell with MS-13. But
Nazis are some very fine people.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. The way, if you can't see the way the term animals is being used, not just to apply to that specific group of people, but to brown-skinned immigrants in general, then it's like you must not be paying attention. You know, I mean, there's something of, and MS-13 has been a boogeyman for that for decades. You know, oh, we're just worried about these violent gang members. Okay, that justifies it.
Well, a lot of conservative leadership involves keeping people in pants-shitting terror as much as possible. So you need to have a bad guy. And when I was growing up, it was always the communist Russians were the bad guys.
Yeah.
And then the wall fell, and we really, you know, we tried, you know, Hispanic people, and there was the whole anchor babies thing, but we really didn't have a really good enemy, quote-unquote enemy, until after 9/11. All of a sudden, it's like, ah, yes, Muslims. And all of a sudden, they became the bad guys.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that we have to live in terror of every minute of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
But there always has to be a bad guy, because you need an enemy to distract from what's happening.
Yeah, and they want to, if they want to paint MS-13 as the bad guy. But if you're not noticing how, you know, when they paint MS-13 as the bad guys, they're getting a lot of paint on other people, you know, who have nothing to do with MS-13, except that they superficially look the same. They have the same skin tone or whatever.
How many kids has MS-13 lost?
I mean, it's a fair question. I'm not. And again, it goes back to the moral high ground thing.
Can you imagine the outrage of 1,500 white kids had disappeared?
Oh Jesus! Oh, and imagine if Obama had lost them.
Oh God!
If Obama had been president when 1,500 white kids were separated from their parents for dubious reasons and lost.
Well, a white president losing 1,500 kids is less of an issue than a black president requesting Dijon mustard.
Yeah, apparently it is. Yeah. Well, that's.
And on that note, yes.
That's 5 minutes of Trump. It's over. Our national nightmare continues, but our unpleasantness for the show is over. So, what frivolous?
Is there a feed problem?
I'm jumping a little bit. I'm not sure what the problem is.
Yeah, the timer is acting up a little bit too.
I noticed. Yeah, I noticed.
And I appear to be way out of sync, at least on my screen.
Yeah.
Sound and video.
It's happened a few times. I think you'll catch up.
It snaps back eventually.
Yeah, it's really out of sync though. But yeah, so what frivolous topic should we spend the last few minutes talking about, just to wash the taste out of our mouths? I think you mentioned the X-Files when we were talking.
Yeah, I watched the season 11 of the X-Files, and I will say that since this revival, they had a 6-episode season, then a 10-episode season, so 16 episodes. And if you go to like Metacritic, the 4 lowest rated episodes in terms of critical response were the episodes My Struggle 1, 2, 3, and 4, the season premieres and the season finales.
Yes.
Chris Carter just needs. Yeah, he is the biggest obstruction in the pipeline right now. He's Gene Roddenberry. He's Bob Kane. He created something good, but he won't. He's George Lucas. Although George Lucas eventually got out of the way.
Yeah.
I was struck that I've never seen a show that had such a disconnect within its own episodes on whether or not it still needs to exist.
Yeah, I totally see what you mean there.
Because Chris Carter is of the full, we need this. and he buys into everything. And then you have episodes like I forget what it's called, like The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat,
Yeah.
which was absolutely hysterical. It was a send up of the show, but it basically made the point that the show is no longer needed. I mean, that's kind of what it was about. When the X-Files started, we were like scared about what the government might be doing behind our backs that we didn't know about. We now live in an era where we live in terror of what our government is openly doing in broad daylight.
Right.
So the X-Files does not have the same. It doesn't carry the same weight that it used to.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. Well, the thing about the revival seasons that really got me was that they carried on the same sort of pattern of the series of the first 9 seasons, which is that the mythology based episodes are usually the most pointless ones, and the standalone episodes, especially the ones where they were going a little bit off format, you know, we're doing something more experimental or more artsy, like those are always the best episodes. And to me, I mean, if you're going to do, you know, you're coming back for a limited season, you know, you're only going to do like 6 or 10 episodes, just do those. Like, don't try to do like an ongoing story. Just do Mulder and Scully investigating a mystery, chasing a monster. Those are always the best episodes. Just do that.
When they did the beginning credits over again with was it Lenny something?
Yeah.
But when the and this could be a little bit spoilerish, I guess, but when an alien started directly quoting Donald Trump, I nearly fell out of my chair laughing. But yeah, but then you also had your creepy ones, like the TV star that was and maintaining her youth through, you know, blood and organs. It was really weird and creepy, but it kind of worked.
Yeah,
it was disconcerting in a way that the revival generally hasn't been, and which the original show was usually very much at its best when it was able to hit those notes that made you feel a little bit weird about what was going on.
Yeah, yeah. They did that episode this time around. I forget what it was called, but the one where they were at the sushi place, and then like all the electronics chased them around because Mulder refused to leave a tip.
Yeah, that was so good. That was experimental, and it starts off with like the real frustrations of technology.
Yeah, and
then it just escalated to the point of complete absurdity, and yet at the end it's still like, I can see that.
Yeah, and they made no effort to explain what was going on or to connect it to anything larger. It trusted that, okay, we're invested in Mulder and Scully, so we're going to stick with this. And they had an interesting idea, and it was just like a really well told short story. And yeah, it was great. And it's like so they did have gas left in the tank. Like there were some genuinely really good episodes produced.
But Chris Carter is way too focused on the kid who nobody really cared about. Yeah. And then we finally meet him, and the first thing, and I guess I'm getting spoilers here a little bit, I guess, although you don't really see this until the first, it happens before the beginning credits in the episode.
Yeah.
But two women see each other as monsters and attack each other and nearly kill each other. It turns out that it was a prank he played on them, even though he was dating both of them. So right away, we really like this character.
Yeah. Oh, good. Glad we met that guy.
Yeah. And then he did his best with what he was given. The actor did the best with what he was given. And Gillian Anderson, she just acted her fucking heart out with this awful material, and she did everything in her power to sell it. Whereas Duchovny spent a lot of his time looking bored with what was going on. I mean, some of it he was good, but some of it he looked like he was just going through the motions. But, she tried so hard. But, I mean, if this is what she's got to work with, I can understand why she doesn't want to come back. Oh,
yeah. Scully was so ill-served by the revival, especially this most recent one, this 10-episode run.
This ridiculous plot twist that nobody wanted and nobody likes about a character that nobody cares about. And it just disrespects everyone. And then at the end they do a hand wave and say, "Oh, look, here's your consolation prize."
Yeah, with no explanation. Yeah, I mean, it's...
And then you have to have Cancer Man, and I don't understand what Monica Reyes, why she would be involved with that at all.
No.
But it's always good at the very end. The last thing that we see Skinner do is the car is coming at them, and you've got Cancer Man on one side, you got Monica on the other, so Skinner unloads his entire clip into Monica.
Yeah. Good job. What? Nice going, Skinner.
Good choice.
You definitely shot the right person there of those two. Yeah, like I say, I mean, as you know, we both are. We're both X-Files fans from way back. It was one of my favorite shows. It still is. But I mean, if other than The Simpsons, I think it's probably the show that has suffered the most from its longevity. I mean, it went way too long, and when they did decide to bring it back, they, you know, Chris Carter, I think, as you point out, was an impediment, focused on the wrong things, never seemed to understand what it was about his own show that was appealing. You know, because which you can say that about George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry as well to a certain extent. It's like you get why people like this, right? I don't think you do.
When this season was over, a question that I asked myself was, if I didn't have the nostalgia factor, if I didn't see the original run, would I watch the show? Why would I watch the show? And I couldn't really come up with anything.
Yeah.
Because even the really good episodes, like the other one, like the forehead sweat one, and the previous season that he wrote about the other wereman, the wolf that got bitten and turned into a human.
Yeah.
It's like that. Those were great episodes, but especially this most recent one, if you don't know the show, it doesn't work as well because it's sort of poking fun at the show itself, and you have to have something invested in the show and know it in order for that to completely pay off.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what there is. The revival did not prove its need to exist because it didn't provide any reason for people who aren't already familiar with the show to join.
Yeah, that's it leaned very heavily on the familiarity with the show, which I guess, I mean, in a way that's smart because I wonder how many new viewers there were. Like, I wonder how many people who weren't already fans of the show tuned in. And I get the impression, at least after the first episodes, there was a lot of drop off, and probably most of the drop off was people who were just tuning in out of curiosity and then thought, nah.
Like, what the hell is this? With
yeah.
What was his name? The guy who did the show. They brought.
The fucking too. Joel McHale guy. Yeah, I can't remember. I can't even think of his name. But yeah, he.
Yeah, well, that's how memorable he is. You know?
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get the focus on that character either. I just thought, like, okay, I see where you're going with this, but this isn't remotely interesting, and it's a total waste of Joel McHale, who can be a really terrific actor, and you know. Yeah,
I mean the revival had it's brought some people back in season 10 simply because of the thrill of seeing the characters again.
Yeah.
But did you see how the ratings dropped between the two seasons?
Yeah, it was it was precipitous.
Average, where is it? The average viewers in millions. Season 10. Well, okay, some of it's not all in yet, but season 10. I'm pulling it up. The premiere had 16 million viewers, and the finale had 7.6 million. The new one, the premiere, only had 5.15 million,
Jesus.
And the finale was at 3.4.
Wow.
They don't have the full season numbers yet on Wiki for this because it takes in some of the web views as well that doesn't tie in the same.
Yeah.
They don't have all the episodes, but the season premiere, it had less than a third as many viewers in season 11 as it did in season 10.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's what will happen.
Because there just wasn't enough reason in season 10 to come back for season 11.
No, I mean, it just goes to show, like, and I told you when in our chat about it before the show, like, I love Mulder and Scully enough that I would keep watching it just out of loyalty. But, I mean, it's good that this, now that Gillian Anderson has said, I'm definitely not doing anymore. It seems like that's it. They're not going to force any more. And I really hope that turns out to be the case, because it's way past time to wrap it up. I mean, I'm not happy with the way it ended. I wish it had a better conclusion. Yeah,
well, I think a big mistake was bringing Cancer Man or Cigarette Smoking Man back in the first place, especially since when we last saw him at the end of the original run, he got vaporized on camera.
I know, like, and they were like, well, we stitched him back together. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of last season, he had like the patch thing for his face, and then that was gone this year too.
He found a great plastic surgeon.
it's just such a ridiculous thing that Chris Carter screwed up a 6-episode season so bad that he had to start the next season by saying that the previous episode didn't actually happen, it was a dream, because it's the only way to write himself out of the corner he created.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
people wanted to come back, and then they saw what Chris Carter was doing. It's like, no, I'm not buying this.
I think if anybody else was like me, I know they lost a lot of goodwill from me by having the first revival season, that first 6-episode run, by having that end with a cliffhanger. Like I think that really should have been a self-contained story. Like those 6 episodes should have been beginning, middle, and end. And
I didn't even know you were coming back. How can
you? Like, what are you doing, you idiot? What if this is the last episode? Like, oh, we'll have a cliffhanger. They'll have to bring us back now. Oh God.
And they didn't exactly give us a cliffhanger, but they gave us something where everything is still status quo. I mean, yeah, we saw a couple bullets go into the guy's chest and he fell into the water, but we've seen him die before, so I'm not buying that. And then the kid is apparently fine. It's not really clear why he's special or anything. He was, because he's Mulder and Scully's kid, so of course he is.
He's magic. He's a magic baby.
Just stop. Just stop.
Oh, I know.
But like you said about The Simpsons, it wants to die. Just let it die.
Just let it die. I know The Simpsons is definitely coming back for season 30. I hope and I pray to the God I don't believe in that this is it. Because I love The Simpsons so much. It's one of my favorite things, even though they pissed me off with the Apu thing and how they responded to, the controversy around that. And actually Hank Azaria's response was way better than the show's. Like, Hank Azaria's personal response was much more thoughtful and sensitive, and like taking the concerns that people have about that character seriously, whereas the show was just sort of like try and make us do something, and that was irritating.
And put it in Lisa's mouth to give it credibility.
Yeah, which was awful. But I love that show so much, and I still watch it. I watch the new episodes, even though most of them are just sort of like, I don't hate them. I don't think they're terrible usually, but it's just like, oh, okay.
They're just there.
They're just there.
They try to build episodes around 25 years ago would have just been a throwaway gag.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the best I can say about it is, I mean, it looks great. Like the animation is great. The HD renderings of the settings and it looks beautiful. When you watch the new episodes on an HD TV, it looks fantastic. But
you
nothing.
watch the old episodes and it's like, wow,
yeah.
The art's come a long way.
Yeah,
they look almost exactly the same, and yet the art has come a long, long way.
Yeah, I mean, it looks tremendous, but nothing that happens is usually very interesting or very funny. And it's just I'm just watching this out of habit, and I really hope that they are allowed to wrap it up with some shred of dignity at the end of this next season, because I really don't get, like, what are we still doing here? You know what I mean? Like, this show is over. What the hell are we still doing here?
I don't know. That's a tricky thing. Well, at least The Simpsons will never have a revival, because it never went off the air. Like Futurama, wasn't one of the running gags of Futurama that The Simpsons was still on the air?
Yes. Well, they're all in jars, I guess. The voice cast is still there. They're just
But yeah, I mean, that's a tricky thing. Like, the revival is trying to do the balance between what came before and trying to do something new. Being familiar but being different. And well, X-Files didn't pull it off.
No.
You see a lot of these shows. Roseanne certainly doesn't appear to be pulling it off. I never really watched that show before, or the new one, but I'm not hearing much good about it.
No, I was actually going to say, I kind of hope that an X-Files-like fate befalls the Roseanne revival, because I really liked the original show, at least up until like about, I think the last 2 seasons I remember being just awful, but up until that it was actually really, really good. It was just hilarious, and it was like one of those rare occasions where the family was actually, they were supposed to be a working class family, and they were portrayed more or less as a working class family. Like, plots revolved around money troubles, and
they weren't upper middle class working at a coffee shop like you see on the House Hunter show.
Right.
Yeah. Well, he does professional origami, and I train lizards to sing. Our budget is $14.6 million.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I
But,
mean, it was a really good show, but I haven't watched any of the new season, and I know that the ratings for the new episodes dropped a lot after the first episode, and I'm hoping that when they come back again for another season, that it'll be an X-Files type situation where it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine, we got enough of this, and then they'll just let it, you know, die. Because I mean, it ran. The thing about Roseanne is it ran too long the first time.
yeah,
Like if they had
like
ended,
X-Files.
yeah, exactly. Like it was past its expiration date the first time. You're like, you better have a damn good idea if you're bringing it back. Oh, you don't. So yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. That's a great point to make about The Simpsons. Like if The Simpsons had ended after season 7 or 8, they could do the revival this year and everybody would love it. But it's been on the entire time.
I believe that when the Christmas special premiered in 1989,
Yeah.
the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, Bush and Quail.
Yeah. It's been on that long.
When that year started, Ronald Reagan was president.
Yeah. Ronald Reagan was alive, yo. I mean, it's
It's been on for Bush and for Clinton and Bush and
Yeah.
Bush and Obama and Trump and oh my God, just go away.
it's like
It
a
used to
soap
be
opera.
wonderful.
It's like a soap opera. It's like they're just going to keep doing these. Like they're
And I never got the chance to show the kids the good early episodes because you can never find them anywhere.
I know. They have
Because they did a syndication deal that predated the internet.
yeah.
And it's like that. It was an exclusive deal until the show went off the air, and nobody anticipated the show would be on the air for 30 goddamn years.
Yeah.
And so you can't get it on Netflix or streaming
No.
anymore because the exclusive rights were signed over to someone else, and they can't get them back until the show is canceled.
Yeah, it's like in the 90s when Marvel Comics sold the movie rights to its most popular characters to like 3 different studios, and they're like, there's no way this could ever backfire.
I was thinking a different comics thing when Alan Moore was going to get the rights to Watchmen as soon as they stopped publishing it, and then the trade paperback was invented, and they have never stopped publishing the Watchmen for 30 years.
Yeah. Ha ha.
Yeah, that's a nice, respectful way to treat somebody. Yeah.
There was some I forget. I don't know.
A
if-
letter of the law.
Yeah, there was something I saw on Twitter. It was it wasn't The Onion, but it was some like a satirical news story about the upcoming Watchmen HBO series. That apparently the first episode of the Watchmen TV series will just be someone burning down Alan Moore's house and pissing on the ashes and killing him with an axe. Like it's just really, it's like, yeah, that's all this is. It's just Alan Moore, the guy who created this, really doesn't want us to do this, so let's do it.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well,
so was that less depressing talking about the X-Files and what's left of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is something I love, but it's not going to get anybody killed. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, I think David Duchovny is relatively stable. I don't think he'll do anything rash. he's not going to break bad on anybody, I don't think. And you know what? I mean, if he does, you can probably get away from him. He doesn't move too quick. I mean, he's very laconic. Get over here.
Yeah. The first episode I saw was like in the first or second season. I didn't really care for the way for his character, but it grew on me when it took me a while to realize what he was doing with it.
Yeah.
The very laid back, approach.
Extremely, yeah, just underplaying everything. Yeah, where it's like,
That's who he is.
Yeah. It turns out that's just him. He's like, I have a type, and my type is me, and that's what I'm going to play. And that's all I'm ever going to play.
That's actually the definition of Will Ferrell.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Didn't hurt it. It hasn't hurt his pocketbook any, though.
That's a shame.
Yeah. I have nothing against Will Ferrell, but I have to say, him becoming like a big movie star is like one of the most surprising things in the world to me. Because I thought he was okay on Saturday Night Live. Like, I didn't think he was brilliant.
He doesn't have a great look, and he doesn't have great talent.
And well,
made
just
it work.
Yeah, it's like just what he does, even when he's funny, even when it's making me laugh. Like, it's just so odd that I never would have thought you know, he's going to be a movie star. Like I would have thought like Will Forte would be a superstar by now, because Will Forte is hilarious and I think is capable of being funny in a way that would be accessible to like a mainstream audience, in addition to doing just really weird off the wall shit. And he hasn't become nearly as big of a star as Will Ferrell. And I guess, you know, shows what the fuck I know.
Well, I thought I could never be in marketing. I could never be in sales as a stuff. I would never conceive of the stuff that sells.
Me neither.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I got packaging and it had like instead of bubble wrap, it had like the large bags of air for cushioning. I remember thinking, who realized that there was a market for selling plastic bags of air? See, that would never occur to me. I would never think, hey, maybe I can put air in bags and people will pay for it.
Yeah.
Never would have occurred to me. Another one, I was watching, TV was on in the break room at my last job, and there was a commercial for like landscaping, and they made a reference to decorative gravel. I'm like, it would never have occurred to me to color rocks and spill them on the ground and call it decoration. Apparently, you can make a lot of money by coloring rocks and throwing them on the ground and calling it decorative gravel.
It goes back to those upper middle class people from House Hunters, or better yet, Property Brothers. Because, you know, the second Property Brother, the one who does all the actual work while the first one fucks off for most of the episode, he's the one who'd be like, you know, if you got some decorative gravel for this front lawn, it would only cost you an extra $15,000, and that's within your budget.
Decorative gravel, it's like, I'm going to sell you rocks, and not even because you need them for a construction project, you're just going to do it for decoration.
You
it's
know,
going to make your yard look better when it's covered with gravel.
That's something that Alec Baldwin's character from Glengarry Glen Ross would say. I'm going to sell you gravel. I'm going to sell you rocks, and you're going to pay me for it, and you're going to thank me.
All right, have we beaten this to death
I think
yet?
we have. I think it's time to call this to an end. Much like The Simpsons, the show is over, and it's time to just let it end. So.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to be doing this in 30 years.
Oh, boy. If we're, you know what? If there's still a civilization in 30 years for us to do this from, I will be happy.
Yeah. Hey, why do you think the audience will be for the Pierre the Chef revival?
Oh, boy. Pierre still didn't show up. I don't get it. He couldn't even show up for the revival of his own show?
You and me and probably Jason Jarman, who would tune out after 6 minutes.
Okay, they're just doing that thing they do all the time. Jason's like, oh, it's what they do on Facebook, only I can't participate. I just have to sit and watch.
That's it in a nutshell. They're doing a revival. They're not doing anything different. It's the same shit. All right, we're done. I'm tuning out.
Yeah, oh, shit.
Chris Carter's still writing it. Yep, we're done.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well,
right, well,
yeah. Go ahead.
I guess we'll see everyone again. And by everyone, I guess I mean no one, because it's just the two of us. We don't see anyone else when we're doing this. But other people can see us again in June at some point.
Yeah, exactly. We can do... We did Memorial Day this time. We can do the D-Day special, maybe. No, that's like next week.
D-Day special. Yeah, that would be an exciting thing. People are going to tune in for the D-Day special. We're making a big celebration out of it.
Yeah.
And we'll be like my neighbor across the street who puts 2 flags on the back of his pickup truck for Memorial Day. And one's an American flag and one's a Confederate flag.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. You are aware that those represent 2 countries who, basically for the entire existence of one, was at war with the other?
Yeah, it's like... It just makes it, yeah, it's like putting up a Red Sox flag and a Yankees flag and saying, I love both. But do you really understand what you're saying? All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We're out of here.
Yep. Until next time.
Until next time.